Hi Founder fans, Jason here. Today's founder is William Maxwell, a brigadier general in the Continental Army who played a really important role in the crossing of the Delaware. Now, he has no known image. Next to me you see a map of Washington's movements after the crossing of the Delaware, leading to the battles of Princeton and Trenton. But as for William Maxwell, he was actually born in Ireland. He came over to North America at about 14 years old with his family, who settled in New Jersey. Now, young William really wanted to be a soldier, and become a soldier he did. In fact, he joins up with the British Army during the French and Indian War and serves for all 8 years of that war before moving out to the frontier to man frontier posts in the period between the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War. Now, just before the American Revolution breaks out, he returns to New Jersey, fed up with his British counterparts for a wide variety of reasons, most notably that the American soldiers were treated as less than the British soldiers because they were colonists, and, well, that wasn't fair. From Maxwell's point of view, they were just as good soldiers, knew the terrain better, and, he would argue, much more hardened men. So, as the Revolutionary War unfolds, William Maxwell joins up and starts to join the fight. He joins with the New Jersey militia as a colonel, but they go up to Canada because Maxwell wants to help with the invasion of Canada. And he arrives just in time to see Benedict Arnold and the Continentals retreating after the disastrous Battle of Quebec. Maxwell ends up being assimilated into the Continental Army, and he's pretty quickly promoted by George Washington as a brigadier general, the second highest rank you could really achieve in the Continental Army, other than being George Washington himself. In this situation, just before the crossing of the Delaware, George Washington gives William Maxwell a very special task. He is to take his men and go up the Delaware River, capturing or destroying any boats he can find for two reasons. First of all, to make sure that the British can't use them to cross over and surprise the Americans, and second of all, so the Americans can use them to cross over the river and surprise the British. He brings these boats back down. John Glover, another, future brigadier general, takes the boats and helps Washington cross over, and that leads to the surprise attacks at Trenton and Princeton, which are huge morale boosters, major victories, not major victories strategically in the Revolutionary War, but major victories morally for the very demoralized soldiers who had been on the run. So William Maxwell plays that very special role there. He continues to serve in the Revolution in the Continental Army for several years, including, second most notably after the crossing of the Delaware, at the Battle of Monmouth. Now, he actually serves well at the Battle of Monmouth, but after Monmouth, which doesn't go so great, many of the leading generals are given court-martials for their role in that particular engagement. William Maxwell was accused by Major General William Heath of being, quote, disguised with liquor while he was leading his men. This was probably true. William Maxwell liked some good drink, and he was drunk pretty frequently. He was court-martialed, but he was absolved of the court-martial, and John Sullivan was the leading juror on the court-martial, and Major General John Sullivan, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially said, yeah, Maxwell was hammered, but he did a good job, so we'll let it slide. Now, Maxwell goes on to continue leading men for several more years. He ends up fighting in the Revolutionary War for a full 5 years, until a few of his subordinates start throwing more accusations of him not being good at his job his way. Maxwell is sick of this and ends up resigning from the Continental Army. Interestingly, he sends the resignation to George Washington, who then immediately, the same day, sends that resignation to the Continental Congress. Now, Maxwell had a change of heart and actually contact George Washington again, saying, listen, I changed my mind. I don't want to resign. But Washington had already forwarded it to the Continental Congress, and therefore, Maxwell's resignation was already accepted. Now, this is very interesting. George Washington made a habit of trying to talk his top generals out of leaving the Continental Army, usually. But this is one of the rare cases where he just immediately accepts it and sends it over. I get the impression that Washington was just kind of sick of all the accusations being thrown at Maxwell, and even though Maxwell was generally defended and acquitted of responsibility and seen as a good general, it seemed to be a tiresome habit that he was falling into, and therefore Washington was like, okay, see you later. Because of this, Maxwell does leave the Army. He doesn't do entirely too much of note afterwards. He does spend a brief session in the New Jersey Assembly. And I skipped over this. I'm going to backtrack a little bit here at the end. Maxwell did put together a team of light infantry during their time at Valley Forge, which I don't want to leave out, where he went into New Jersey, his homeland, where during the Forage Wars, where there was a lot of skirmishes, not really outright battles, but a lot of skirmishes between the British and Americans in attempts to get food that was being grown by the farmers in New Jersey. And Maxwell played an important role in that campaign also. So I apologize for going back there, but I didn't want to leave out that very important part of his career as a soldier in the Continental Army. But like I said, after his resignation, he does do a brief time in the New Jersey government, but essentially returns to private life, really for the first time without being a soldier in his entire life. So that's the overview of William Maxwell, a fascinating brigadier general in the Continental Army. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit like. If you're new here, subscribe. I put out videos about the American Revolution all week long. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out the link to my Patreon page below. Recently, I started doing Sunday night, I call it 18th Century Politics, where I discuss some of the things I learn about but don't have time to make videos about. So if you're interested in learning a few more things, having a little bit of a chit chat with me on Sunday nights, check that out. I would be much obliged for your support. Thank you, and I'll be back with another founder for you tomorrow.